Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be working on my 2005 Pontiac Grand Prix. We're going to be replacing the water pump on the 3.8 liter Series 3 engine. The process should be the same for any GM 3.8 liter engine. Let's take a look at what we need to get started. We have the new water pump in the box right here. That's the most important part. We have a 10, an 8, and a 13 millimeter socket. We have coolant, although I got the 50-50 pre-diluted. I recommend just getting full strength. However, this is what I had. And I have a drain pan for when we spill some coolant on the floor. To start off, I'm going to remove the coolant tank, expansion tank here. I don't know that you actually have to do this, but it'll give me a little bit more room to work around in here. Once you have the two 10 millimeter bolts out, or nuts out, you just have to pull upward. And we can sit this out of the way over here. Next, you will need to get a 15 millimeter socket and a ratchet. Place your ratchet on the belt tensioner pulley right here and push down to release the belt. Take the belt off and just set it to the side. Now with the belt off, this is your water pump pulley right here. These are 8 millimeter bolts to hold the pulley on. And I just take a screwdriver in here like this, and to pry on so that the pulley doesn't turn when I'm removing the bolts. Loosen all of them, and then you can take them out by hand afterwards. And once you have the 4 bolts out, your pulley will come out just like so. Your new water pump should look like this. It also comes with a gasket, as shown here. This is the basic layout of how your water pump is going to sit on the side of the engine. Just imagine we're looking straight at the engine right now. You'll have 13 millimeter bolts right here, here, and here. As well as I believe this one and this one are just guide pins. And the rest of the holes are all going to be 10 millimeter bolts. Now the only thing we have to do before we can take out all the bolts for the water pump is this bolt right here is behind this pulley. Now you have two choices of how to do this. You can pull off the pulley itself, or there's 2 bolts, and you'll use the holes, which I don't know if you'll be able to see, in the pulley, and put a 13 millimeter socket there. There's 2 bolts. There's one up at the top and one at the bottom. And you can just remove and set the power steering pump just a little bit out of the way. That's the way I'm going to go. I think that's easier than actually pulling the pulley off and trying to put it back on. You can either use a deep 13 millimeter socket or one with an extension. I'm choosing to use one with an extension. And the first one is broken loose. And got the other one on. And it's broken loose as well. I'm going to remove the bottom bolt first. It's loose enough I can do it by hand. Just because that's the harder bolt to get to. With that, you can just set the power steering pump out of the way like that, which gives you access to your final bolt there. Now, as I said before, with the power steering pump out of the way, we can now get to all of our bolts on the water pump, which is pretty exciting. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it on video for me to get all of these. Just refer back to the water pump, the new one that I showed you just a few seconds ago. That'll show you where all your bolts are and make it real easy for you to find where they are all sitting at inside the engine here. I'm going to start off by removing the larger 13 millimeter bolts. Alright, I need to make a correction on one thing. I've been calling the smaller bolts on this water pump 10 millimeter, and it actually looks like they are a 3/8 possibly. I'm not sure, but the 10 millimeter was way too loose on there. So, and the 3/8 seems to fit right. I'm surprised by that, but that seems to be what it is. Now all the bolts are removed from the water pump. There's 4 shorter bolts like this. They're all the same size. That are the 3/8. And then there is the 13 millimeter longer ones, and they're all the same size as well, so you can keep real easy track of what bolts go where. Now, the water pump is actually going to be stuck on the side of the engine a little bit. They make a little bit of a groove here that you can put a pry bar in to pry it off. So that it'll be sitting on the engine just like this, and just put a pry bar in right there and pull off, and it should come loose. Just like that, it did. Let's wiggle it a little bit. And there's the old water pump. Now the next step is very important. You want to take a razor blade or a scraper of some sort that you can fit in there and clean up the edge of the engine where the gasket is going to sit. With the face of the engine all cleaned up, making sure that your gasket seals good, you can use the set pins on the side of the engine to rest this in place and hold it there while you get ready to put the water pump back on. Right there, you can see what I mean. I'm using the set pins to hold the gasket in place. And we're going to use the same set pins to when we set the water pump in place. They were really handy. So just take your new water pump, put it on those pins, hold it in place, and then you can start some of your bolts. Let's start with the top bolt here, the easiest one to get to, just because that makes the most sense for holding it on there while you get all the other bolts in place. The most difficult bolt to find is the one that goes down underneath of the water pump, but even wasn't too bad coming off. Now I got all the bolts in place, and now it's just time to tighten them down. Now it's time to do the power steering pump, putting it back on, which could be a little difficult trying to get the bolts lined back up, but hopefully not too bad. You really can't see anything down here. You've got to do it all by feel. All right, I think we got the first bolt started, maybe. Not sure. Hoping. We got the power steering pump all reattached. Wasn't terrible, wasn't super easy either, but you know, you got to do it. Next thing, so we just got to put this pulley back on. We're going to do it. We're going to put the pulley back on the same way we took it off. You can also wait until you can just put the bolts on lightly and then put the belt on and use that as tension too. That's another way to do it, but I'm going to do the screwdriver thing that I did before. It wasn't real hard. You'll notice on the back of the pulley there is two little pins here so that you get it set in the correct place. Got it there. Just finger tighten them down as far as you can. And we'll just stick our screwdriver back underneath here and tighten down. With the pulley on, it's time to put our belt back on, and I will put a link in the description below that has the diagram for putting the belt back on. With your belt in place, just take your water reservoir, coolant reservoir, and sit it back down on the pin down below, and put the two little nuts back on. These are 10 millimeters. And with some greasy hands, that's how you replace a water pump on the GM 3.8 liter engine. Don't forget, you're going to want to top up your coolant at the end. Make sure that it's all good. There's no air bubbles in the system. Let it run for a while. Check your temperatures, all those things. But I hope this helps someone. I know there's a lot of videos out there. If you have any comments, please leave them below. If you're interested, I have a high miles review of this car. But if you enjoyed this video, if it was helpful to you, just hit the subscribe button, the like button, and we'll have more great content coming at you. Have a great day.